give it a second, let the stream catch up, make sure I'm not chopping off your intro because I've done that several times.
Production can be hard.
Oh man, tell me about it. It's my day to day, 9 to 5. All right, so we are back for another Check Your Six episode, and this is postseason content. So here we go. We've got Liam, the CRSL product owner and Space Productions management member. There you go. I lost that last word. But Liam is here to join us, and we're going to talk about CRSL this last season, the summer, the future, and we're going to dive into Liam's story as well because he made this awesome, very grateful set of tweets after the season was over, and it just immediately hit me that there's a story here. People should hear it. We should hear from one of the main owners of collegiate Rainbow Six, one of the three leagues that is representing college space. And so getting to know the people behind these leagues is a huge step for me and a huge step for this space. So welcome,
New
Liam.
follower detected.
Thank you. Yeah, it's a pleasure to be here. It's been quite a while in the works to be where I am now. So definitely happy to dive into that story because it's a common question that people ask me is what does it take to do what I do?
Yeah, so let's start with talking this season. Now, this season, it was great. Like you stood up like a new website. You had some major trial, like 7 different trials. You were able to bring in last year's runners-up and champions, as well as run a land-based trial as one of the last ones, and net some major sponsors along the way for that trial. So this was a particular year of growth. Why don't you walk us through the start of this season?
So season 2 was really where the other owners and managements of Space Productions and I, mainly Sam Morris, who is kind of my partner in crime for CRSL, we really wanted to make season 2 like a landmark. So Sam Morris and I have a history of working on the entire collegiate siege scene for quite a while now. Heading into season 2, it was going to be wrapping up our second year of involvement, and we really wanted to be able to try to take it to heights that we've always wanted to take it to, but haven't yet. Going into season 2, I think our goal was to ramp up the competitiveness of CRSL. So season 1, 2 semesters ago, was kind of it was kind of like an application process. Teams could apply to the league, and then we reviewed those applications and accepted teams into the league. And while that's great, it's an invite league. It is what it is. It's not necessarily always the most competitive, but we wanted to be able to provide season 2 as an experience for these super hyper competitive teams. Think Akron, FIU, Miami, all these teams that are consistently sitting at the top. And we wanted to be able to just hit the nail right on the head and be essentially what the best product that we could be. So the trial system, as you mentioned, we did 7 trials, and that was to determine, essentially kind of give the teams a gauntlet to prove themselves. So we took the top 2 from each qualifier, I believe, or top 4 maybe. It's been trials are so long ago now that it's like it's hard to talk on it because I don't even remember how we did it. But just like all that time ago, the trials were essentially a gauntlet for teams to be able to prove themselves on why they should be in CRSL. We believe that was the best format to do it if we wanted to keep it competitive, because it forced teams to play and it forced teams to prove why they're going to be here. And talking on Anaheim, one thing that we've always wanted to do is be able to bring live activations to the collegiate siege scene, because it's definitely still in its early stages, and it's something that the collegiate scene has never really seen before. So the live activation was something that we kind of just pulled the trigger on. We exercised some connections that we had within Space Productions to the industry, and we were able to secure some spots. The teams who made it out there, they had a reserve section. So we had 3 teams, 2 NAU teams and an ASU team come out. DreamHack Anaheim was a little bit difficult just because of the timing of everything. When you look at the timing of DreamHack Anaheim, most of the California schools that are on different formats for their schooling are going through midterms or they're going through finals. And it was a little bit difficult because of DreamHack Anaheim itself was like an event. It had a lot of stresses, very obviously, and we tried to do our best with what we had. But we had those 3 teams come out. They had a reserved little section that was like literally just collegiate Siege players and like the LAN, which, considering that 950 of the 1,000 seats available for BYOC were for Fortnite, was pretty cool to see the one corner of like 15-20 people in the one corner that were just collegiate Siege. DreamHack Anaheim became largely a Fortnite event. It was definitely something really interesting to see happen like live. But we put on a kick-ass show, and that's always been our mantra, is put on a kick-ass show and provide an experience.
Absolutely. You got to.
So we helped run the specific BYOC LAN stage. So we not only helped with our production, but we were backstage helping with other productions as well that were ran throughout the event. And we also got the opportunity to continue to work with Cooler Master. We secured that sponsorship in season 1, and we continued it through season 2. Cooler Master is always great people, great products, obligatory shill, but they're great people, and they always support what we do, so it's greatly appreciated. And because DreamHack is kind of like a staple event in the community, we were able to secure NVIDIA for that. We were able to give away some graphics cards to the winners of the event, actually. So winners of the event got to go home with some new graphics cards from NVIDIA, and second place got to go home with some Cooler Master peripherals. So that was like a really cool event. And there's like a funny story that stems off of this, and I know that he might actually be in the chat somewhere. Initially, we left 2 qualifier spots for Anaheim because we anticipated it to be larger, but due to the restrictions and everything that happened, we couldn't pull off quite the magnitude of event that we had hoped for. 2 teams that showed up had already qualified in online qualifiers, so that left a free spot for the last team, which is NAU's D2 team. So NAU's D2 team got an automatic into CRSL through attending the Anaheim qualifier, and that left us with 1 spot, which we had initially planned to fill through qualifiers, but then it left us with like an invite spot. So we were like, okay, who do we invite? And I just distinctly remember there was, I want to say 7 or 8 of us in this Airbnb from Space Productions, like just jamming around this like kitchen table, and we were like, well, who do we invite? Like, what teams have participated in qualifiers consistently? And I think it came down to like who we felt best would fit into the CRSL environment, because we definitely have a mission and like kind of a front that we like to put up for the league on what kind of community it is. And we actually came down to Elon University, and I'm pretty good friends with their captain. He's become a great friend over this season, and he's actually one of our TAs now.
Nice.
I remember just Snapchatting their captain of their team, and I was like, hey, do you want to play in CRSL? And their team members were a little bit confused on why they were getting an invite spot, and they were like, oh no, we don't want it, like we're not going to do well, like we don't want it, it's kind of like just like a joke or whatever. And I was like, well, I can assure you that it's definitely not a joke. And they were like, okay, well, we're in. And that's how we ended off trials. It was definitely like a really great experience. Anaheim in itself, I had actually, like, personally, that was a wild experience for me. I attended the Siege Invitationals in Montreal, which was the week before DreamHack Anaheim. So for me, getting home from Montreal, I flew out of a different city in Arizona, actually. So my airport was an hour drive away from my home. So I got back to the US from Montreal. I drove the hour home. I got home at like 11 p.m. or something ridiculous. And I threw all of my clothes into the laundry and then into the dryer, and I went to sleep. I woke up, put them in a suitcase again, and then picked up the other guy going to Anaheim with me and drove the 8 hours or whatever it is to Anaheim the next day. Yeah, Anaheim was definitely an interesting experience. A little bit tired, a little bit stressed.
New follower detected.
It was a great experience overall, and like being able to provide that first landmark experience for those teams, like there's definitely like an experience there that I'm sure that I'm not going to forget. The Space Productions guys aren't gonna forget, and especially those teams, because like I loved interacting with those guys, especially because I'm an Arizona boy myself, and getting to interact with 3 of the Arizona teams and like getting to meet them in person after interacting with them for so long. It was a great fun.
So
Yeah, see CJ is there in chat talking about the invite.
Well, welcome CJ. Thanks for joining us, and thank you for joining in on the league. I know it was an unexpected invite, but I mean, Elon still got to have some great experience with this, and so like being able to be part of a formalized league that has so much competitive integrity at its heart in its formation, like that's just experience that your team will never forget. So that's just a really cool side story along the way. So thinking more about like beyond the trials, as you got your teams, you were going through this, like you have this sweet page on your sweet website, and like Syntax and I kept talking about it throughout the season. It's just like, okay, we want the stats, and we dove into the trial stats, and we really wanted the group stats, and it's like it wasn't quite there yet, but knowing that it was moving in that direction, that there were those plans, and that way we even got to see, what was it, the final 4 stats, which was part of the topic from last week of being like, this is the data that we want to see overall for all of these matches, because like for Syntax and I, with like between the 3 different leagues and over 100 teams over across multiple leagues, it's really hard to start getting a good picture of where teams are competitively unless they are at that top tier, unless you're Akron, unless you're FIU. Like those are the teams that are consistent across leagues, and that's the only story that you can really get. But getting those additional stats, map picks, operator bans, all of that stuff, like that got us really excited about thinking about what's to come and how that's going to help create more of that narrative for the league. What was that like for you all?
Yes.
You wanted to get
Come,
there,
follow me.
Couldn't
follow.
Yeah, so the website came to birth really in season 1, and we wanted to really ramp it up in season 2, because for us, I know that CR6 uses Battlefy, but for us, we use homebrew platform essentially. So we use Discord just because it's easier to connect team to team for Discord, and with our normal season being round robin, and that's a big talking point for me, is we really set going into the normal season, we took the teams out of trials and we split them into 4 groups of 8 teams each, and we actually tried to create the most geographical groups we could, and that's huge,
so
because
that's
I know
how we
that
got
like
a group of death
in
Texas, like that South Division, like it was just like, this group is the only side I don't want to be a part of if I'm playing.
We wanted to do that not only because we knew that it would essentially regionalize a lot of those normal school rivalries that you see, and that's something that's really exciting about collegiate, is seeing how that those school transfers or those school rivalries can transfer over into the esports scene. So that gave birth to a lot of rivalries, but it also got rid of a lot of the scheduling problems that you see in these other leagues. Back when I used to be running, like when I was running CR6, season 2, we had 146 teams participating, and that was like a scheduling nightmare. So we were with 32 teams and regionalized groups. It was super straightforward. Every match had a channel where teams could communicate, and we made sure that these teams are constantly confirming times with our admins, because that's something that we also did this season, is we recorded every single map that was played through, from the start of groups to the end of playoffs. Was every map was either recorded or live broadcast. So we needed to make sure that we knew when everything was happening so we could schedule observers, etc. And that presented its own slew of challenges, but that really helped us that we knew it was round robin, and it gave a lot of flexibility, especially when COVID came around, because teams knew exactly who they were going to play ever since the start of the season. Done. We gave them like an ideal schedule. We were like, hey, like if you want to follow this, go for it. If you want to play multiple games, let us know. That's what it is. And it gave a lot of flexibility and a lot of solutions to these teams that I think we haven't seen before. So it was, from like a tournament organizer standpoint, that round robin was a blessing. It really allowed us to focus on the recording and the production of everything, because that was something that we couldn't normally get in like a Swiss format or a bracket format. Talking on the normal season again, like with the production of everything, Most of our production, again, through Space Productions, we work heavily like on the Utah campus and based out of Salt Lake City, Utah. So that was a little bit rough with the campus shutdown because of COVID. It presented its own unique challenges because suddenly we couldn't have. A lot of people don't realize that like the CRSL productions, we don't make our observers produce, so we have dedicated producers, we have dedicated QAs, we have dedicated everything. So it's a full production unit, and finding solutions for that remotely was really difficult for us in the beginning, just because we needed to be able to have solutions that we were only used to in person. So finding those remote solutions was really difficult, and it hindered the amount of live broadcasts we could do. But again, we still got everything at least recorded. So there's a counterbalance there. And there's definitely like a lot that we learned from recording every match. A lot of challenges with how much data we pumped into a Google Drive. So there's that. And we wanted to do a lot more with the VODs. And speaking on like the stats earlier, we just simply didn't have the manpower to like scrub through all of the VODs and record stats. Going into playoffs, I think, was probably the most interesting phase, because a lot of teams narrow it in on each stage of the playoffs. And I know it's like worded in stages, but as a tournament organizer, I really like to look at our playoff structure as an overall structure. For us, teams went through a double elim bracket, and then they went through another double elim bracket, and that's a little bit confusing to teams at times. But when you look at it, ultimately you're looking at a triple elim bracket, which when you put it in one piece can be super, super confusing. But I think that gave the best experience possible in terms of competitiveness that we could. Scheduling was another problem that was just an absolute nightmare for the Final Four, especially. And I mean, what do you want me to say about playoffs? I think it was just about as exciting as we could have hoped.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Like seeing FIU. So I touched on this. We recently did like a fireside kind of podcasty talk with the head admins and Sam from the league director team. We kind of touched on our expectations and what actually happened, and seeing the storylines was absolutely insane. So going towards the Final Four, we were seeing Texas A&M, UTSA, FIU, and Akron emerge. Utah fighting for their absolute lives to like stay in that bracket, UAH fighting to stay in that bracket, and just seeing that like the individual skill of each team was absolutely insane. UAH has definitely become one of our more active teams in CRSL. They come to 10 mans, they're always talking with us, showing up to streams and that kind of stuff. And I definitely think that they're developing, if they continue to stick together as a team and they don't make any roster changes, that you can essentially see the next FIU.
Oh, absolutely.
UAH is each incredibly individually talented, and I think once they come together on a little bit more cohesive and find their tempo, that's going to be a very dangerous team. Utah, I really want to see them get into the top two, because they put an astounding performance up against Akron. I can't imagine the pressure of having to face Akron multiple times to try to make it into the Final Four. That's a really daunting task.
And I mean, that was probably like my favorite story that encapsulated the entire season, because FIU had won both of the encounters against Akron before the playoffs. And so Akron, who was the potential triple crown winner from the fall across CRSL, CR6, and CEA, and now there's this team, this FIU team, competitive in all the other leagues last couple seasons, but they're the ones sticking it to Akron. Oh damn. Yeah. And then suddenly we're in the playoffs, since FIU and Akron in the semifinals, and it's like, oh damn, how's this gonna go down? And then it just Akron, and then again Akron in the grand final. Like, you couldn't have written a better story of going 0-2 and then putting it together when it really counts. That was awesome.
I think I like to say, and this is like a little bit of a tournament organizer meme, like when people in your grand finals chat saying scripted, like, you know that you've created like a good storyline through the competition. I think personally my absolute favorite storyline was Texas A&M and UTSA, only because it was like a little bit spicier of a one, just because there's like two teams like really like butt heads, and I actually observed one of their playoff matches, and I totally didn't understand like the banter that was happening between the two teams. So like seeing that play out multiple times was really interesting, and seeing Texas A&M like reclaim a spot in the top 4 was really cool for me, because going back to CR6 season 2, that was probably one of the most hyped grand finals of all times in my opinion. Going the full length of a best of 5 in a collegiate championship was absolutely insane. Yeah,
I was part of that. I was on the team. Yeah, that was
exactly.
That was a long match. We played from, I think we started at
it was like 6 hours.
It was a long. Yeah.
No.
It was a long.
It was a full 5 map best of 5, and like the last like 3 matches went full OT too.
Oh,
it was
Syntax.
Yeah, it was. We started.
You should have clutched
like,
it. You should have stopped that.
I tried, but I think we started at like 9 p.m. We didn't get done till like 2 a.m. It was ridiculous. Yeah, it was a long match.
Damn.
But like seeing Texas A&M like reclaim their spot was really like a highlight storyline for me. And I know that the admin team, we were absolutely losing our minds seeing Akron, like, because like Akron in the normal season, we're like, well, wait a minute, that might just be a fluke. Maybe they're off a little bit. And then we get into the double elim bracket, and suddenly we're watching this Akron game, and FIU sticks it to Akron and eliminates them to the lower bracket. And it wasn't even like it was the first map, granted, was close. I believe it went to OT, or it was essentially 1 round from OT. And the second map, FIU absolutely blew Akron out of the water. It was like a 7-3 victory on Villa. I distinctly remember that map because we started looking at FIU's capability on Villa, and we knew that was going to be like a huge storyline map for them. And that was like huge. We were just like, Akron in the lower bracket, like, we're here, it's happening. Is Utah gonna, because Utah has to face them now, so Utah's redemption is against the team who sent them to the lower bracket. So there it is. And part of me wishes that the Utah guys were able to pull that off, but seeing Akron back on top is of course like a storyline that you just love to see it. Those guys are great, and they're such a high caliber team. But that storyline, I don't think we could have had it play out any better. Especially this was something interesting storyline wise. In the final 4, Consulate was pulled as a decider map in 2 of the matches, and Consulate had been by far one of the least played maps. So it was really interesting to see the Akron FIU map come down to Consulate and then Akron pull it. And I don't remember which match it was, but it also came to Consulate, and FIU, I believe, took a dominant victory over that other team on Consulate. So it was like, okay, Consulate is suddenly
who's
this like
real dominant team. How's this going to shake out? Yeah, and I mean, going back to the stats that we were talking about, like being able to see that and like make sure that these teams are informed of those results and the preferences or the things to run away from. Like, do you really want to pick the map that everyone's straying away from, even your team? How much have you prepped on that map versus how much are you willing to gamble that the other teams have prepped on that map? And how far have they gone with their precautions and research on you? So like being able to get that data and get that in the hands of any of the analysts that are on these college squads, like that's going to make the drama, the storylines, and the competition so much better.
Yeah, so unfortunately we're taking like a little bit of a step back for the summer league in terms of stats gathering. Just because it's summer, we want to give our admin team a bit of a break. At one point we were operating off of like a bare bones admin team of 2 head admins, myself and Sam. So it was a little bit stressful at times. And throughout the entire season, getting stats up was a little bit difficult just because of the logistics of the recordings. And then head admins at any given time were needing to scrub through the VODs to collect those stats, etc. And gathering that manpower to be able to collect the advanced stats like we did in Final Four would be a little bit crazy. But I think I can talk a little bit more on the Final Four because the amount of manpower that we put into the production for the Final Four was actually crazy. So at one point, we ended up having to change mid-broadcast. There was like a huge conundrum that happened mid-broadcast. So we were actually utilizing 2 RTMP servers at the same time. Our observer was actually a remote observer. Ty, bless his heart, he's a great observer. So he was streaming his match to an RTMP server that Sam was pulling to Utah, where he was producing and sending that feed out to the 3 head admins and myself, and then to the also to the casters. Myself was then recording through vMix. It's the software that we use. Yeah, like CJ just said in chat, working on the Final Four broadcast was like super rewarding. It was such a complex system. But then again, I was pulling the feed from Sam of the Observer, and then I was operating in vMix a like remote replay system. So we were able to do instant replays in the grand finals and the Final Four, which was really cool. And I was operating those actually off of an external hard drive because I didn't have enough space internally on my computer. And that posed its own limitations, and essentially the replay systems were writing too fast for my external hard drive, so the replays were choppy. But I was then streaming those replays to an RTMP server that Sam was pulling and producing it on his own, and he has an entire like 3 PC setup, one dedicated to encoding, one to streaming, and one to producing. So it was a whole big system that was going on. After I got off of replays, it eliminated one of the RTMP servers, and Sam was just doing it locally on his producing PC. But on the stats side of things, we actually had all 3 of our head admins in a call together at one time, and they were recording entry frags, who killed who planted the bomb, what the bomb site was, what the map was, who's playing what operators, and that was all collected in live time. So our wonderful admin Adam was able to our wonderful Monty Main. He was able to create a Google sheet that was really, really great and powerful for our admins to be able to just literally live input stats. It was really nice to see, and they put in a great amount of work. And then we were live feeding stats to the producer, who would put them on the fly-ins, and we coordinated the fun facts even. Like, that was just something really cool that we wanted to be able to do to give the teams a little bit more personality. But the stats collecting was done all live time. So we were at most on like a 3-minute delay, just because they were getting a clean feed that was undelayed from the Observer essentially. So they had roughly 3 minutes to gather stats to show on a round. But that was what it is. And scrubbing through those VODs proactively during the match is something that we definitely want to do, because broadcast for us is such a huge focus. While our consistent basic broadcasts aren't there yet, our one-off like grand finals, top 4 broadcasts are where we pride ourselves in being able to show what we can do as like an entire group.
Have you guys ever thought about getting your own dedicated NAS for all this footage and broadcasting?
It was a thought. So the problem that was presented with a lot of what happened is almost all of our observing was done remote. After the COVID situation came to what it is, initially we were using a peer-to-peer connection from someone in Utah actually to the producer, and that was a little bit lower quality than our RTMP feed is. Peer-to-peer was 720, but we were streaming at 60 FPS, so we thought it was a decent enough compromise. But once we got the RTMP up, we were able to take anyone's remote feed from there. And that's also the problem with the group stage is everything was done by remote observers. So that's why sometimes the timeline on getting matches uploaded to the YouTube and stuff was a little bit rough, because these individuals have to like process they have to like trim off any like rehosts or anything, and then they have to upload it to the drive, and we all know how Google Drive can be when uploading massive files sometimes. I'm pretty sure my USB 2.0 like could process it faster, and then we have to pull it off of the drive, render it into YouTube, go through all of the YouTube studio tagging and titling and all that kind of stuff, and then it ends up on the YouTube channel. So it was definitely like a whole process, and we just weren't able to commit the staff to being able to like locally store and then scrub stat or VODs for stats. It's definitely something that we're looking into. I won't speak on it a whole lot, but we are actively developing and looking into solutions to better automate and gather stats for Rainbow Six.
Yeah.
That's
the news I
my
wanted.
that's my little thing. So Space Productions is a company. We have a wonderful developer team. They are hard at work at some projects that I won't mention what they are doing or what they're utilizing, but we are looking at active stat gathering.
That's pretty sweet. So that summarizes this season up pretty nicely. Like improvements, some faltering steps along the way, dealing with global pandemics. It's all part of the job apparently now.
Yeah.
So, but I mean, I mentioned it at the top of the episode. You made the series of really great, very appreciative tweets, and I was hoping you could kind of go into your origin story about how you got here and how you got to be in that spot to be so grateful.
Yeah. So, if we really want to take the long path on it, I come from Xbox. I only very recently, I say recently, but it's been a few years now. I swapped to PC relatively late. I was definitely a Halo kid, grinding away, like having my dream of being on the MLG stage one day, competing with all the Halo pros.
As we all were.
Yeah, exactly. It's like a very stereotypical story. And like I was grinding away until I realized that the Halo scene was dead, and I was like, well, what am I gonna do now? So that's when I discovered PUBG. Actually, that was like the first game that I really played when I built my first PC. My friends that I had in high school and like my first couple of years of university were really into PUBG, like super into it, so into it that they got me into PUBG. And I kid you not, I put 600 hours over like one of our academic breaks, just straight up. Like it was like a high school summer break, and I put in like 600 hours into PUBG.
Wow.
I actually ended up going to Northern Arizona University for my freshman year of college. I was like as pre-med with an emphasis in occupational and physical therapy, and that was a starkly different major than all of my friends were. All of my friends were like computer or engineering majors at the University of Arizona. So I was like hundreds of miles away from all my friends, different major, but we still shared like PUBG as a common ground. And I had like that same passion for Halo as I did for PUBG. So I found myself actually in like a pro scrims Discord one day, and they had an announcement channel for like external tournaments and partner tournaments. And I saw an advertisement for collegiate PUBG actually. And I was like, holy shit, this is our chance. I got special permission to play in collegiate PUBG underneath the University of Arizona because I had already anticipated on transferring back. And I think that's where it all started. I actually got involved with the staff team at collegiate PUBG. I was a moderator, which was essentially their version of a tournament admin, just checking teams in, making sure that they're in lobby, moderating the Discord, all your typical like really entry level things. But I don't like to half-ass things, so I put my all into it, and it got recognized by one of the owners of the leagues. And once I departed with collegiate PUBG, he brought me on to some other projects that he was working on. I'm not sure if you're familiar with the title. What is it? Isle of the Nine or something. It's a very unpopular battle royale.
Yeah.
Yeah, actually, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Yep.
When that first came out, we were building a tournament for that. That was the first project that I worked on after collegiate PUBG, and we just discovered how like we got beta access and everything from the developers, and we realized how difficult that game is, because that game was very, very difficult. Like that was probably one of the harder battle royales I've played. So long story short, we ended up moving away from that. And that's when they started stumbling upon Rainbow Six and playing Rainbow Six really heavily. I wasn't like quite buying into it at first, but I bit the bullet. It was the season that Lion came out. I got to play ranked the last season or the last week of that season. I placed a proud bronze 1 or 2. Like I was way down there, and like all my friends that I had been working on these projects with were there. So that's where collegiate R6 was born. So CR6 was born. I was initially brought on not as leadership. I was brought on as a community staff member, and I was going to be responsible for helping out with community development and growth. Things popped off on season 1, I think. Like we hit like 40 something teams pretty like relatively fast, because there was like a huge demand but no supply. and that's when we were doing student verifications. So I was literally sitting for hours on end, scrubbing through hundreds and hundreds of individual submissions to verify people in the Discord, making sure that they had an EDU email and all that kind of stuff, and like it was a legitimate person and a legitimate email. And that was my responsibility for a good chunk of it.
Honestly, I think that's a pretty necessary job. Because...
Oh yeah, it definitely is. But it was like, okay, when can I like play Rainbow? When can I be with my friends?
Yeah.
But I did it in like, I scrubbed through all of the player verification in like 2 days. Very sleepless 2 days. But at that time I had also already transferred back to the University of Arizona, and that will get important soon. CR6 season 1, I was also still a competitor because I wasn't like technically a tournament admin, and I wasn't a leadership team member. They allowed me to play in the league, so I was like the R6 coordinator at U of A, and we donned a team. Syntax, I don't remember. Do you remember B Groans? He played for Liberty.
That sounds familiar, but I don't.
Yeah. So B Groans, he ended up, I think he was staff for a while afterwards. But like Jahui, who plays for the Disrupt women's team, was on the U of A team season 1, and like we had this great team. We ended up like long story short, we made top 16. It was great. It was a great experience. Mm-hmm. But throughout that, like I was working really, really hard, and it was early. I would say it's like mid-season. The owner of the league really like recognized my hard work, and he gave me an opportunity to come on as like the official title of the community lead for CR6. So think kind of along the lines of like a head admin / community manager.
So it has a nice
and
ring
from
to it.
there. Season 1 happened in the fall, so we had a winter break to plan. Like season 1 was, we learned a lot, obviously. Heading into season 2, we planned the entirety of season 2 in like 1 week of winter break. It was
jeez.
Yeah. Just because of how everything ended and everything, like we just had like 1 week. So we planned season 2, and that's where CR6 like shit really hit the roof, because we hit 146 teams season 2. That was like over double our teams, and it was
I've like, unless you were looking at a tournament from TESPA, you weren't seeing that size, that sheer scale. Like you had to be like a full-on like development house running this thing that's fully funded, fully staffed with full-time workers, bottom to top, boots on the ground to leadership. That's the only time you see a tournament that scale. But for CR6 to be doing that was something new. And that's actually one of the things that caught my attention so quickly about the collegiate Rainbow Six space. Like for all the leagues that were out there, like to see that this one league has so many teams willing to work with the organizers, work with each other, and understand we're all in the same space of, we all have finals, we all have midterms, we all want to play this game and get good at it, get better at it, and win this damn thing. Like, that was just a community that was already so far beyond so many other online game communities, and competitive as well. Like, that was a huge kick in the pants to say, yeah, this needs to be a podcast. This needs to be covered and talked about.
Yeah, it was absolutely crazy, because like we were floored by that 146 teams. Like we had to expand our brackets, and we like were really ambitious in our scheduling. I don't even remember the format of season 2. I think we were still using Swiss, even maybe. Like we were still, I would say, relatively new all to like tournament organization and administration, and like the brunt of it was that there was like no, we weren't like a company, we weren't like fully sponsored, we weren't supported by Ubisoft in any capacity. So it was like a bunch of people just working on this out of passion. And that's really where I met Sam Morris, was in season 2. So he was handling our broadcast, and like we just kind of hit the boots, or the ground the ground running essentially in season 2. We had like an invite league and then an open league, and that kind of helped us divide the teams and just go for it. Like that's what it was. And season 2 represented its own challenges, and I think like from a personal standpoint, season 2 is when I really started to struggle mentally, like as an individual. Because like that was an insane amount of stress. I would say probably my most unhealthy, physically and mentally in season 2, just because like, and that's something that I don't really shine a lot of light on in my personal stories, is because season 2 I was in a very bad place. Like a lot had happened in my personal life, completely unrelated to CR6. And then the unique challenges that being just like a group of passionate individuals working on this massive project, like the challenges that brought and faced on its own, and all of us needing to deal with our mental stresses, like really brought some unique challenges to the league. And season 2, I want to say I was averaging 2 to 3 hours of sleep a night. I would wake up to anywhere from like 17 to 90 DMs. So CR6 season 2, we really just had like a support channel where people would spam it and we would get to it, or they would DM us. And that was like, from a tournament organizer standpoint, it was horrible for like our tournament admins. And we were so top heavy in terms of work as well. Like all of the leads were the people doing the bulk of the work. Like I had community people underneath me, but they really just helped me engage with the community and help on things that they knew how to handle. So like when I wasn't answering the ticket desk, they were. And like not a lot of people in the CR6 scene know me nowadays because I'm estranged from that project. But like season 2, season 1, I lived in the support channel. Like I was in class, like I distinctly remember getting yelled at in German so many times because I was in my German lecture trying to like answer support desk. And like that's what it was. But that was, season 2 was very mentally rough for me. I wasn't getting a lot of sleep. It was so stressful, and like the only thing that was keeping me going was the community and the passion I had for that community. I don't think it was necessarily passion for the tournament itself. It was literally just the players and their experience. But that's when I met Sam Morris, and season 2, a lot of the leadership staff decided to leave CR6. We just decided that it was best for us personally and like on a business level to part ways with the ownership of CR6. And that's what I'll cover on that.
Yeah, I remember after season 2 happened, and from a player point in season 2, and now hearing like the actual admin side of it and how like stressful it was, like I can totally understand. But at the time, from a player's point of view, it felt like everything was being handled pretty poorly. And obviously that's not true. Now it seems like you guys were just overwhelmed, and that honestly, like I didn't think about that at the time, but that makes total sense. You guys were just overwhelmed by all the bullshit that the players are probably throwing at you. And I was like, after season 2 happened, I saw a lot of the staff just leave, and I was like, well, that makes sense, because like, you know, this tournament or this league was kind of going downhill throughout the season, and then all of a sudden everyone just kind of left. I was like, okay, you know, that kind of makes sense. But now hearing your side of it actually shines a lot of light on it, to be honest.
Yeah, and that's like something that I really want to apologize for, because like I know that from a player standpoint, season 2 of CR6 looked like a garbage fire, like a dumpster fire, and it absolutely necessarily was from an internal standpoint too. We were so overwhelmed and so stressed, and a lot of us were so new to dealing with this kind of thing that like we just, the only thing, there was like at one point, and like I won't shine a lot of light on a lot of the other problems that kept the staff from functioning, and like there was a lot essentially that kept us from functioning as a staff team and growing as a league. A lot of personal things too, just between like the owners and the leaders of the league. There was just a lot between that, and
yeah, I remember that.
We just needed to like depart ways, and that's what it was. It was just like we wanted to continue to serve the community, and like I'll touch on where Sam Morris and I go, but I'll let Syntax talk now.
Oh, I was just gonna say, I remember there was a lot of I forgot what his name was, XPR, the owner of CR6.
Yeah.
There was a lot of like backlash with him for, you know, numerous reasons, but you know, even I think now that I think about it, like, you know, there was like the prize pool at the end of season 2. I don't think anyone got any of their prizes.
Yeah,
I don't think anyone got anything from that.
the money was like a really like a difficult thing because like we in season 2 we started to open up all these avenues of like revenue. So Sam Morris, bless his heart, he's a very talented and connected individual. Managed to get, so Sam got the CR6 or the Collegiate R6 Twitch page partnered through the Twitch student program, I believe.
Smart.
So we were able to have like that partner channel, and that was generating revenue by itself. And like this is one thing that I will touch on because it's like it's simply a business thing. As a lead of the league, I didn't know where that money was going. There was no official papers of the league to state like this is what your role in the company is, and this is what, like, I had never seen a piece of paper that essentially that says that I work for this company. So it was, we didn't know. And Sam, even though he was the one that got the panel or the channel partnered, we didn't know where that money was going. That was when the Sector 6 deal was also struck, was in season 2. And then there was merch created for CR6. We didn't know where any of the CR6 cut of money was going, because everything funding wise was coming from XPR. So again, the lack of communication and like just everything that happened on that side of things, we were like,
yeah. And I think that's the risk you run of it's the risk you take when you're running a league that's not like an actual business, you know, like an established like LLC or something, you know, where everyone, you know, how you're an employee, where you can see like actual like financial like paperwork and stuff like that. You know, all the money could have been going to XPR, and he could have been doing nothing with it. You know, he could have just been pocketing it, and no one would know. And legally, he could have done that. You know, because it's not. It's not a company, you know.
Yeah. I'm not gonna point fingers and say what happened, because I just simply don't know what happened. Like from my standpoint, I don't know what happened, and I'm not gonna make speculation on it. But it came down to, I made good friends with Sam Morris because we were both like dumping our souls into this project. Mm-hmm. And then that's when we split with CR6, and we needed to decide what we were gonna do. I got onboarded to Space Productions. Which in itself, you asked before the podcast has started, what's the relation to Space Station Gaming? Sam Morris had actually worked with Space Station as a graphic designer. The Echo skin that you see in game, he had a little bit of play in that, so that's like a cool fact. So at the time, like Space has a lot of subset companies that they do like all sorts of different stuff with. I think it was just kind of like a spin-off. Space Productions, we're not related to Space Station in any way, and that's like something we have to make painfully clear to a lot of people for business reasons, is that we're not related to Space Station. They don't own any stake in our company. We're just our own entity. But that's when I was introduced to Space Productions, was after CR6 season 2. That was kind of like an interesting summer for me, because I had left CR6, and like I really mentioned like the mental struggle, and it was a struggle to try to find myself out of CR6 once it was gone, because like suddenly the thing that I had been dumping all of my time into was gone. I had some like amazing experiences over the summer. I got to go to my first DreamHack, or my second DreamHack technically. I went to DreamHack Anaheim as a competitor technically, but I went to DreamHack Dallas as like just a visitor, and that was amazing. Got to like go to DreamHack Dallas, and like it was towards the end of CR6 season 2 where I was told that I would be getting the president position of the University of Arizona Esports Club, and that brought on a lot of responsibility, and that was like a community that I was passionate about. And like funny enough, we had been using like a jersey vendor who apparently didn't pursue the correct license with the university. So like when I got president, it was like a week after, we got an email that was like, hey, if you don't clean this up, like we've DMCA'd that company, and if you like continue to do business with unlicensed people, we're going to sue you next. And it was like, oh, okay, this is a great way to start this off.
Well, I mean, you cut your teeth on something difficult right up front, everything else is going to seem easy.
Okay. Yeah, and absolute shout out to my U of A community, because like I love those guys to death. They don't see me around in the Discord a lot, but that's because I'm just trying my best to work things behind the scenes for them. And that's something that I'm still doing today. Like today, 10 a.m. like after a job interview, I was in a meeting with people from University of Arizona trying to hash out some future plans about esports on the campus in the future.
Well, you and I are going to have to talk about U of A esports, because that's for the other podcast that I run. So collegiate esports is running strong here. So you and I were going to have another podcast to do at some point. But
sounds good to me.
We're coming up to the end of our time. Oddly enough, like that's 50 minutes of talking. Like it flies by every time. I want to make sure that we get to touch on what's coming up for CRSL in the fall. I know you got, and even the summer. I know the summer is a little bit more chill, but the fall is where the rubber hits the road, and there's obviously some development and stats stuff being worked on that you can't talk about. But what else? What else is the goal for the fall and the summer?
So I won't talk much on it, and I know that this always like really ticks people off sometimes.
It's all good. I
will not talk a lot about our plans for the fall. There's been some really interesting developments across the entire scene. I know
Would you
that
happen to be
we've been
talking
sending
about
out
a survey that might have been going out to certain players?
Yes, so there has been a survey that's been sent out that has been in collaboration with the other leagues, and that's all I can say on that.
Okay.
So all of the leagues sent out a survey that gave birth to a couple of like focus groups. So that's all I can say on that.
Of course.
Fall, stay tuned. We're gonna get through summer, and we'll make an announcement at the end of summer. For Summer League, our rule set's finally completely finished. We made a lot of adaptations because we tend to use Summer League as a testing ground for new things. So like I mentioned in our fireside talk, we're going to be following the competitive rule book a little bit more for our Summer League. We stood really steady during the normal season for a lot of our rulings. Yana and Oryx are even going to be included in the Summer League. Bank is out, Border is out, Theme Park and Oregon are going back into the map pool for collegiate. So Summer League is going to be really cool. It's going to be Swiss format. Those signups are going to be ending here really soon. On the 31st is when we're going to cut it off. And then on June 1st, it's going to be the first official play day that teams have for their matches. So stay tuned for the Summer League. We're gonna try our best to make that a best experience. We're gonna test out some broadcast stuff, test out and tease some of the things that we've been working at for stats, hopefully. But that's what the future holds. It's a lot of very mysteriously shrouded things, but we've got to keep it that way for a little while.
Absolutely. I mean, things are moving. Like we Syntax and I talked a little bit about what that survey could potentially mean, as it's Ubisoft reaching out to the collegiate scene, and it can go either my conspiracy theory way and be way bigger than it probably is going to be, and just being like, okay, yes, this is the monstrosity that we're creating, and it's just all out of my brain. Or you can be more realistic like Syntax and just being like, it could be a thing. Like,
well, I can't confirm or deny anything. Yep. I've signed some papers that say I can't talk about it.
Great. I love it when papers like that are involved. That's
okay. Well, if good old Swindle over here is NDA, then you might have some validation to your tinfoil hat there, Joe.
Well,
there we go.
I can't exactly say what it is, but there's definitely a piece to each argument.
There you go. So let's just wrap it up. Let's let you have the floor to do any shout outs that you want to or need to do, or anything else that we didn't touch on with CRSL that you feel like anyone else might need to hear, whether it's people in chat or if it's going to be a podcast listener on Monday when this episode will go out, that you would like to share with everyone. Please, it's all yours.
Yeah, definitely. Like I said, a huge shout out to MySpace Productions guys. We talked about that Twitter thread and the people that I tagged there. This possibly could not be possible without all of the people at Space Productions. Every single observer we had, our wonderful head producer Elijah, all of our head admins, everyone that's ever had a play in this from the beginning of CR6 Season 1, like a massive thank you, because this has been me chasing my dreams quite a while now, and we're finally getting to a stage where I can really like tote this product and be proud of it, and everything that we've achieved. So keep an eye on CRSL. We're going to be here, and we're going to continue to innovate a lot of things and try to be that forerunner for a competitive experience in the collegiate community. Summer's going to be exciting, and I hope that I can unveil some really cool things in the fall.
If people wanted to follow along with CRSL or follow you, other than the @Swinster I have up on the screen at the moment, where else can people be following this community?
Well, personally, like I said, my Twitter ad's @TheSwinster. I'm constantly tweeting stuff about CRSL. Space Productions, we don't really have a form of communication on social media for Twitter yet, but stay tuned. We're undergoing a little bit of a rebranding for some of our stuff, so stay tuned for potential competitive teams, stream teams, etc. from the Space Production staff, just so you guys can get a little bit of a more back end into what it's like in a lot of our daily lives and projects that we're working on and personal developments. But really just make sure that you're following College Rainbow Six on Twitter. If you guys want to go ahead and follow me on Twitter, if you have any questions or anything after this, like I'll always respond to DMs. A lot of you know where to find me on Discord as well. If you can find yourself into the CRSL Discord or want to send me a friends request on Discord, that's just swindle number 0001. It's super easy. I'm always here to answer questions, and I love talking about my experiences and sharing that knowledge.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much for coming out and talking with us. It's great to get more of that behind the curtains, the Wizard of Oz, kind of how the magic is happening, and especially because this is one of the 3 biggest leagues in the collegiate space for Rainbow Six, and it's great to get to know the people who are running these and the history behind them, knowing that there's so many interconnected people for all 3 of the leagues. It's exciting to get to know them and get to know this space better. So thanks again for coming on and chatting and sharing your story and all of your stories, really, and just what we can look forward to in the summer and the fall. Thanks again. Really appreciate it. Everyone in chat, it's been a pleasure. I've loved actually having people in chat, so definitely a great experience. Everyone, thank you for following. This has been a great episode. Thank you, Swindle, Liam, for bringing everybody in and helping out the channel, helping out the podcast. And with that, I think that this is going to be the last...
Yes. Come, follow me.
Sorry, I just
Follow.
I may not have turned down the volume as much as I thought I had. My bad. But, what was I saying? Wow. Now I know what chat was saying when they said...
You said it's going to be the last...
Oh, that's right. This is probably going to be the last collegiate report until the fall, as I'm going to do my own development work over the summer to get us a mega spreadsheet going so that I have all the data in front of me and Syntax so that we can start talking more the narratives as the competitive seasons go on in the fall. So I've got my work cut out for me over the summer. So we'll be talking Pro League or whatever it's now branded as for North America. So you can still look forward to those casts as that becomes available once we actually kick off that league. Until then, we'll be on a brief hiatus. You can always catch me streaming on pretty much Mixer, Twitch, YouTube at Warlock Recall, and I'm also always on Twitter, more so than anything else. So that's me, Syntax. You can do your sign off.
Oh, I'm good. You can follow me
Okay.
at SyntaxGG on Twitter. I don't really stream that much these days, so you don't need to follow me on Twitch, but
Fair enough. Well, thanks everyone for joining. Hopefully you get some good luck in your ranked matches or your public matches and not have to deal with so many cheaters in the near future. Thanks again, everyone, and we will see you all later. Peace.